Hello happy people, Hamza here and welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to show you how to create the horizontal scroll section using the premium add-ons for Elementor. And when you look over here on the premium add-ons for Elementor, this is how the horizontal section looks like, what they created for the demo, something like this. But in our case we are going to create a horizontal section that looks just like this over here. We will have a header and also the section itself, and when you scroll you'll have your sections roll in just like this and something like that. And of course each of these widgets over here have been given a motion effect using Elementor, and then we implemented the other sections using the horizontal scroll settings. Now once you are done, then when you continue scrolling down, then the footer shows up of your website. But also I'll show you how to add a scroll background transition. Now for example, I'm going to enable the scroll background transition on the very last slide of our horizontal scroll, and right down here you enable the background that you want to use, which is this background. I'm going to simply update. Okay, now I have that updated. Now you're going to realize that if I scroll and I come over here to the very last slide, the background is going to change and we will just continue browsing with that background. So let me update. Okay, here we are. I scroll, our second slide, our third slide, and our fourth slide. You see now the background has changed. Now when I scroll back, we just continue using the same. Now again, if we reload this page right over here, we will now revert back to our very first background that we had chose, which is this over here. On the other hand, I'm going to show you how you can actually trigger entrance animations on all your slides by enabling this feature over here, like enable entrance animations on scroll. It means that every other time you're going to scroll through your sections, each of those sections that have an entrance animation will be animated. You see how each section is being animated individually simply because we enabled the entrance animations whenever someone is scrolling. Okay, now let's dive straight into and we see how we can get started creating this horizontal scroll using the premium add-ons. Okay, to get started creating our horizontal scroll using the premium add-ons for Elementor, of course you'll be needing to install both the free version of the premium add-ons for Elementor and also the pro version of the premium add-ons for Elementor. This is because that the horizontal scroll element is only available in the pro version of the premium add-ons for Elementor. Now once you have both of the plugins installed and activated, you're going to come over here to the premium add-ons for Elementor and you come over right here to the pro settings, and please make sure that you have enabled the premium scroll widget to be used in Elementor. You can choose to disable all the other widgets just like I have done over here, and then you simply save changes. Now once you have saved changes, you can simply now head back to your pages and you can create a new page, or you can simply open up an existing page with Elementor. In this case I'm going to simply open up an existing page with Elementor. In this case I'm going to clear up my canvas, and then if you have a title showing up over here, you can simply just come over here to settings and make sure that you hide the title of that page. Now I'm going to create or add a new section, and I'll simply just add a one column section. Then I'll come over here to the widgets area, and then I'm going to simply either search, or I can simply collapse all these other widgets that I don't need. Then I can simply just grab my premium horizontal scroll, and here I'm good to get started. When you're going to use the horizontal scroll from the premium add-ons for Elementor, you have a number of sections, or call them slides, that you can add to your scroll widget. In this case they call them like items. So you can add a number of items by saying add an item, add an item. That means that you will be adding items that are going to appear in your horizontal scroll. So in this case, what you can choose from, you have two options. You can either use a section ID or an Elementor template. A section ID is basically a template that you created on your page and you want to use it in your slide over here, and what you have to do is to add basically here the section ID. And if you want to use the Elementor template, this means that you already have created an Elementor template and you want to simply display that template in the slide over right here. In this case we are going to first demo using the Elementor template. So when I come over here and then I select the content type to be Elementor template, I'll say slide 1. Now this means that I've already created this slide in Elementor. So now the question is, how do you create your slides that are going to be appearing right over in this horizontal scroll? I'm going to go back to my dashboard and I'm going to come over here to the save templates. When you look into the save templates, I have slide 1, slide 2, slide 3, and many others. And when you come over here to my very first slide, I'm going to open it or edit it with Elementor, you realize that I have my first slide just like this over here. Now don't be worried why you're only seeing one button. This is because I made that my background is basically colorless. So when I come over here to the section itself and then I come over here to style, I'm going to simply add a color to the background. And you see that now I have my words over here, they are all in white, and I have my widgets. This is what you're basically seeing over here, only that now we have a different background, which is a gradient. So the question is, how do we animate to make that these words are actually animated when someone scrolls? When I come over here to my slide, I simply just selected this specific widget, for example the heading. I came to advanced settings, I came to motion effects, and I just gave it a fade in. The same I did for all the other widgets, just like over here, motion effects, fade in, normal. For the button, advanced motion effects, I simply gave it a fade in, normal, and I gave it a delay of that amount of time. So the question is, how can we create our own section or template that we are going to use? So in this case, I'll simply just come over here. I created a template, so let me say sample. Let me call this sample slide. I'll just say a section, not a page. Okay, now what I'm going to do is simply add a new section. I have added that section. I'm going to come over here to the sections settings. I'm going to make it full width. I'm going to give it a no column gap, and then the height, I'm going to give it a minimum height. I'm going to give it a view height of only 70. Next, what I can do, I can add a couple of things. For example, the styling, I'm going to give it a simple style, for example, only the background color. And then what I'm going to do is come back over here to the widgets. I'm going to grab a heading widget. I'm going to give this to be a sample slide. And then I'm going to come over here to the style, typography. I'll choose my font style or font face, and I'll give it a weight that I want. And over here, I'll give it a color. Come back over here, give it a font weight. So in this case, the font size, that's how it is at the moment. And now let me suppose this is the slide I want. I'm going to give it a motion effect. Come over here to the motion effects under advanced. I'm going to give it an entrance animation of fade in, something like that. I'll simply now publish. Now when I come back over here on my editor for the horizontal scroll section, I'm going to simply reload. Now since I've reloaded this, I'm going to select my horizontal scroll widget. I'm going to come over here to the slide option. I'm going to choose Elementor template. I come over here to the Elementor templates that I have. Then there is a slide that I have that is called sample slide. Once I select that sample slide, you see now it appears. And that's simply how you can create your own slides that are going to be appearing right over here in the horizontal scroll widget. Okay, now let's get started on the real work. I'm going to simply close everything over here. I'm going to come back over right here, come to Elementor templates. I'll delete the sample slide that I had created by trashing it. And now let me show you. I have the slide 1, slide 2, slide 3, and the slide 5. These are the slides that you're basically seeing in any of these sections. I created them just the way I have shown you how to create any of those templates. Now what I simply need to do is come back here to my pages, open up my horizontal scroll section, and then I can get started adding my slides to my horizontal section. Now once we have our page or sections opened up where we want to add the horizontal scroll, like I had said earlier, you simply just have to come over here and then you search probably the horizontal scroll widget, add it over right to your page or canvas. Then what you're going to do is simply come over right here and you're going to add your content or the slides. So I'll simply add my items, and these are the items like I've already told you that I created. So I'll simply select the Elementor template, come down here, select slide 1. The same I'm going to do for the other. Elementor template. Here I'll select slide 3. And then I'll add Elementor template. And here I'll select slide 4. That's it. Now what we're going to do is, since we don't see anything right over here, we're going to add a background. What I'm going to do is simply select the horizontal scroll widget. I'm going to come over here to advanced and I'll scroll down here, select the background option, and I'll add a background gradient. So in this case, I'll add something like this. Okay, that's how I happen to achieve my background. I can give it an angle, something of that sort. Now next, what we are going to do is we are going to work on making sure that this horizontal slide is getting to the edges of our page and the height that we want. So what we're going to do is come back over here, come to the content, and the content option. We're going to make sure that we select the whole section, and then we're going to select the section width to be full width. The column gaps, we're going to say no gap. And now when we see this, you see that now our horizontal slide is getting to the edges of our page. So now let's first update, and then we are going to preview our section. Now we have our very first slide showing up. When we scroll, you see that we have our second slide showing up, the third slide showing up, and the fourth slide showing up. Now we are going to customize this section over right here. We're going to reduce on the distance right down here, and then also adding the progress bar. Just like you see over here, this progress bar, when I scroll, you see that the color changes, or basically it shows you to which slide you are. And then we're also going to customize our navigation buttons to look something like this. So now we head back to our editor, and then we're going to select our horizontal scroll widget, and then we're going to simply just come down here below to the advanced settings, and we're going to make sure, one, that we want the number of slides to appear in the viewpoint to be only one slide. If you make it like 1.5, you'll have the next slide kind of appearing right over here, just like this. So kind of half of the other slide coming into the very first slide. I don't want something like that. And then the offset pixel is basically this distance up over here. You can simply increase a little bit that. And then the scroll type, you can make it normal or snappy. By snappy, it means that if you scroll just once like this, boom, it will scroll and snap. It will scroll and snap. And if it's normal, you have to continue scrolling so that the whole slide is getting into your whole viewpoint. But with snappy, you simply just scroll once, boom, it shows up. Boom, it shows up. Here I'm going to select it to be snappy, and down here you can disable the snappy effect on touch devices in case you don't want it to be applied. So that's how I'm going to leave it, and then we can enable the progress bar. So my progress bar is going to be down below, and I'm going to have it to be something at like 50 pixels. So all these settings we are making over right here, they are going to be applied only on the desktop version. And then we are going to come over here. There's something called opacity scroll effect. You can also enable the opacity scroll effect by simply switching this on and off. And if you don't enable the opacity scroll effect, you can enable the trigger entrance animation on scroll. This means that whenever you are scrolling to the next section, you'll have these animations played that you had added way back later when you are creating your individual slides. So that's how those animations are coming in. So in this case, I simply want to make sure that those animations are showing up on our slides whenever we are scrolling. You can enable the keyboard scrolling or not, that goes back to you. Then on the navigation part, we are going to leave that the navigation dots are enabled, which are just here, okay? And then we are going to position them to be on the right. So when you look over here, you see some 4 navigation dots because we have 4 slides. And then we can set the offset. This will move our navigation dots way a little bit in. And then we are going to disable the navigation arrows. And then when we scroll down here, you see that we have some kind of page numbers. In this case, we don't want to enable page numbers on our slides. So I will simply disable the page numbers over here. And down here, there is an option that says responsive settings. You can enable that the columns are put next to each other on desktop devices, but we'll go into that later on. Now what you're going to do is simply come over here to the style, and we are going to come over here to the navigation dots. Now these are the ones over here. We can increase a little bit the size, but we go into increasing the size. Let's first change the color for this. So I'll simply give it something like that, and I'm going to give it an active color. So the active color is going to be white. And we're going to give it also some kind of an active border, so it will be a little bit something of that sort. You can increase the size of the navigation. You can also add the border radius or something like that, depending on what you want. I don't want to go into that. And then the progress bar down here, we can add a color for our progress bar. The color is going to be white, and then the background, we are going to make it something like this color. By default, it is white, but I prefer to still select white, the color. And down here, we have the option to select the container background color. We don't want to do that at the moment because we don't need to add a container background. Once you are done styling up your slide, simply update. Okay, so once we are done updating, let's have a preview of our page. So here we are, we have our preview showing up. When we scroll, you see that now our slides are showing up with a slide transition showing up on scroll, just like this over here. When I go back, see everything is working perfectly well. Now when I continue scrolling until the very last slide and I still continue scrolling, it will now take me to the footer of our website. Now I'm going to show you how to add a scroll background transition. When we reach over here on the very last slide, our background will change and then we'll just continue using a new other background automatically. So when I come back here to my editor, I'm going to select my horizontal scroll widget and I'm going to select my very last slide in this case, and I'm going to come over here to the scroll background transition, enable that, and I'm going to simply add our background type, and we are going to make sure that this is going to be an image. You can choose a color, and I'm going to simply select an image over here and I'll insert my media. Then I'm going to make sure that this is positioned center, and I'll make sure that this one is set to cover. Then I simply update. So after updating, I come over here to our preview. We have our first slide, second slide, and then we have our third slide. And then when we switch over to the fourth slide, boom, our background transitions into a new one. Now when I go back, you realize that now we still have the new other background that has been selected. When I update my section, it now switches back to the original background that we had chose until we reach the fourth slide, when it transitions into a new background. But if you don't want that, you simply just come back over here and then you simply just disable the scroll background transition and then you update. Okay, now it looks like we have done 90% of the job. The next job that we have to do is we have to make sure that each and every element that we have created over here on our horizontal scroll widget is mobile responsive. How do you enable that? So by simply coming over right here and then you switch to like a tablet or the mobile, you'll have the option to set up any of these sections. For example, when I come over here to the mobile option, when I look at the mobile option, it looks really not amusing. Now that calls for you having to do some adjustments. So when I come over here, I'm going to select the horizontal scroll widget, and under the responsive settings, I can enable to put the columns next to each other. Okay, now when I disable that, you realize that now we have our horizontal scroll section looking a little bit better. The point to note over here is that you have to make sure that once you are creating your sections or your templates right over here, make sure that they are all mobile responsive perfectly well. That means that when you add them over here on the horizontal scroll section, they won't really give you a hard time to make sure that they are responsive. And then when you come over here on the advanced settings, you can enable the number of slides to view in a viewpoint. For example, you can say only one slide instead of having to show two of the slides, because if you're showing two of the slides, it means that you'll be taking up a big chunk of the space on your mobile device. And then the scroll distance beyond the last slides, you can simply just make this 0. And then on the offset settings, you can choose that you have an offset distance from the top, so you can either make it the distance that you want. And now when I scroll into my sections, that's how they are looking like. All the affected responsive settings that are showing up on these sections were made in the saved templates when I was creating them. And then over right here, there is the scroll type. You can choose it to be normal. It means that you'll have to scroll right until you get into that section that you want, instead of it snapping onto the exact dimension of the slide. And then also you can make changes on your horizontal scroll bar. Just like over right here, you can choose that it's a little bit up, something of that sort, or that it's visible in the canvas. And also you can make changes on the navigation, on the size of the navigation. You can also make changes on the offset settings of your dots. Like over right here, I can choose either to have them a little bit in. Now on the other hand, when you head over here to the style setting, you can make changes to the size of your dots or your navigation by either increasing them or decreasing them. On the mobile, the same applies to the progress bar. And of course, you can also make changes to the radius or border sizes right over there. So in a nutshell, that's how you can set up your horizontal scroll using the premium add-ons for Elementor for your website. Now when we update and we have a final preview of this horizontal section for our website, these are the final results. We have our first slide. When we scroll, our next slide shows up, our third slide shows up, and now our very fourth slide shows up over there. When we continue, now our footer will show up over right there. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments regarding this tutorial, please let me know down in the comment box below. Otherwise, I wish you the very best. If you like the video, please give it a like, and if you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. Have a good time and goodbye.